Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today on the show, Dave Russell. A man of many hats, a man of incredible integrity and character. A man who's got a lot of stories and so much fun to share. And I find Dave, now that we've met and we've chatted a few times, I find myself just chuckling and listening as you go. You are a colorful human being, man. And I love your storytelling. And you have lots of stories to share. So thank you for hopping on the podcast and spending some time with me today, man.
Well,
Appreciate
thank you for the opportunity. You know, if this helps out Tunnel to the Towers and everything else, that's kind of very close to my heart. You know, I appreciate what you do, you know, for the fire service and for putting everything in the right lane.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll say this, Tunnels to Towers is because this weekend we're going to be doing a fundraiser together through Dragon Rescue Management with Mike Dragonetti and his crew. We're going to be doing a fundraiser in Connecticut this weekend where the money raised will be going to the Tunnels to Towers Fund, and which I know is near and dear to your heart, considering you know, September 11th was such a big part of your career and so on, which we're going to get to. But I kind of just wanted to open the conversation. I mean, the intent today was to really get to understand a little bit about your story, because we're going to be doing a roundtable on Saturday at the fundraiser. And my idea was I'd love to get to know you before we get into that, so I can ask some questions to really bring out some value this weekend. And so I guess how I like to do with a lot of guests is just start to kind of the beginning. I mean, you're a fourth generation firefighter. Your father before you was a fire chief in Fairfield, Connecticut. So you grew up surrounded by the fire service.
You went to daycare, I went to the firehouse.
I love that.
That's how it was.
What was it like? Like, so, okay. I mean, that was, you know, you look at all these iconic photos and videos where guys would bring their kids to work and the kids would jump up in the engine and ride out and, you know, spray some fire with a can outside a building or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just what an incredible time, but impressionable, right? You got to spend countless days as a child in firehouses and going to calls and fires. Like, I can only imagine what that did for you with your passion for the fire service.
Well, the whole history was my great-grandfather was in Southport, Connecticut. He was one of the first paid guys in Fairfield, one of the first 9 paid guys, if I got it right. He was also the department blacksmith, and he was a steamer engineer.
Wow.
So I still have several of his handmade tools, and of course, none of them match because they're all handmade. And he was Judge Russell, and then my grandfather was a chauffeur, and then when he retired, he went into real estate and insurance. And when my father got back from the war, World War II, he was in Navy. He was on a PC patrol craft chasing U-boats in the North Atlantic. And he wanted to go, my grandfather wanted to go in the insurance because my grandfather said, you don't want to be a fireman. Well, that lasted about a year, and my father ended up getting on a job and worked his all those way from the back step to the front office.
Yeah.
And, you know, my first smoke inhalation, I was 6 years old. I swear to God. They had a major recall because now they're called marshes and all that. We called them the swamps. And this wind-driven fire, urban, whatever you kind of want to call it, fires. The general called because they had a couple houses burning with the swamps, the swamps going the other way. And we had a Dodge Dart with a push-button transmission, and we had electric windows. This is 64, whatever it was. So we thought we were pretty cool. Well, my father pulled into this dead end, and the fire was burning away. And then the next thing you know, he gets out, it's electric windows, shuts the car off. He leaves them cracked about 5 inches. And when he used the word buster, that was like using fucko. Don't move.
Right.
Whatever you do, don't leave this car, Buster. And the fire was going away. And the next thing you know, it came back. And the street got banked down, and I literally was, you know, smoke's coming into the car, and I'm literally on the floorboard of the car, doing my best to get some fresh air. I did not leave. I wouldn't have left that car if it was on fire.
Sure.
Because, he said Buster, and that's the end
That
of
was
it.
it.
So that was my first smoke inhalation. But I grew up, like I said, I grew up in a firehouse, not only just going for Christmas parties, we would just go there. It's just a way of life.
Yeah.
Like I always said, you went to daycare, I went to the firehouse. I was cutting roofs when you were cutting class. And I took my first essentials class in the Fairfields Fire Training Center in 1974. And 75 to 76, I was a paid call fireman. Because back then there was no overtime. You worked a day tour, it was a straight paid tour, but it was considered overtime. So if guys were making more money pulling wire, banging nails when they couldn't hire somebody, they hired me. And then I used to work engine one, aerial ones, what they used to call it. And then 76, I enlisted in the Air Force Crash Rescue. And from 76 to 84, I was active duty. Then I got out in 84 early to get on the FDNY.
Yeah, so how did you find the military? Where did the Air Force influence come in?
Actually, obviously, you had to be 21 to take the FDNY test. I was 18. I knew I was not going to be college material, and I was too small for the Giants or the Jets, so I went in. I wanted to be a fireman, so I went. Actually, truthfully, the first place I went was the Marines, and they didn't have anything for all my Marine friends. I couldn't join the Marines because I was overqualified. I had a high school diploma. I knew who my daddy was, and I didn't have a parole officer, so I couldn't make the Marines.
Here we go. Yeah.
So, well, shots fired to a lot of my jarhead friends, and I don't eat crayons. So then I went to the Navy. They had damage control and some of the stuff, and then I went to the Air Force, and I'm dating. The guy put a cassette tape in, and for 45 minutes they showed the structural, the crash, the rescue, the hazmat, and everything. I said, all right, where do I sign? And that was it.
Yeah. So, but the goal was always to be a career firefighter, right? So, or did you?
Since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a New York City fireman.
Why New York City?
Well, when I was 6 years old, we always used to go to St. Patrick's Day. My parents met on St. Patty's Day. They considered that their wedding anniversary. So and I was the only Irish Catholic in all Polish school. So St. Patrick's Day was a high holy day for me and my family. So we always went to the city, to the parade. We had a routine down where we go, parked by 4 and 54 in Manhattan. My father's uncle was in Fort Truck, and we'd just go there. And then we were coming back one night, and my father would not walk across the street to see a fire unless it's in the city. And it was early evening, and I just remember it was, now you look at it, it was kind of a disaster. And I remember looking up, second or third floor, and the fire escape was kind of melted, bent, and there was a couple guys on the ground on the sidewalk helping the civilian that they had pulled out. And this guy was burnt up pretty good. And I just remember the fireman sitting down, cradling this guy, keeping his airway open and just helping him out. And the concern that guy had in his face for that guy, he said, I want to be one of them. So since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a New York City fireman. And I said that all the way through from high school and the military. And despite my best efforts, it worked out.
And that stayed with you. I mean, 6 years old is pretty vivid memory, though. I got to think as a 6-year-old to see that and understand, or maybe didn't exactly understand, but knew a sense of, these guys cared about a complete stranger, right? I mean, that had to be the
these guys, now I know, these guys were covered in the old rubber coat, rubber boot days, and these guys took some beating to get this guy, and, waiting for medical attention, whenever. And I don't know, God knows what the medical attention was back then, but the concern, and that these guys got their asses kicked.
And they still cared. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That's powerful. So you leave the Air Force, or you have an opportunity, you test with the FDNY. You're still in the Air Force, though, correct?
Yeah, my last base, I was at Homestead Air Force Base in South Florida. So the application came out. I filed for it. So every test I had to take, I had to get leave, buy airline tickets, get transportation, set up, and we worked 24 on, 24 off in the Air Force, 72-hour work weeks. So I would schedule leave on a Friday, take the test on Saturday, fly back Sunday, be back on the base on Monday.
Right.
You know, it was business. You know, I wanted it. So
Yeah.
that was the written. Then you had to do the psych and the physical and the medical and all that. Then I told my interviewer, I said, you know, the lieutenant, I said, you can't call me on Thursday to tell me I got to be somewhere on Saturday. What do you mean? I said, you're dialing area code 305, okay? It's not 212-718. I got to get this. And sure as shit, twice. Hey, this Saturday you're scheduled for, and I'm like, if I could have reached to the phone, I would have choked them out. You know, but it worked out. I had to fly up like 6 times to take the test, take the physical.
Did they have residency back then?
Yes. But because I was in the military,
Got it.
I was going to be able to set it up. So I ended up using a friend of mine who's in Fort Truck, and he was in Yonkers, so I was able to get that set up. And so when I took the written test, because of the Yonkers, I took the written test in the Bronx.
Got it. Well, that's cool. So hired then in 1985, but you still had years to serve, correct?
Yeah, I owed them 4 more years because I got out with 2. I was overseas, did 4. I extended when I was overseas, and then I re-enlisted. So I was, you know, when I was going to be done, it would have been 12 years. And so I owed them 2, and I did 4. And like I said, if it was bad, I was going to get out. And like I said, it was so lousy that I did another 22 up at Stewart.
Okay.
And that was a great unit up there.
Yeah, Stewart Airport, right? Newburgh, New York, yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Really interesting. I mean, so when you got on then in 85, you cut your military career short, but you still owe a bunch of years. You go back to it. When you arrived in 85, what was the academy like back then?
It was legit. You know,
Yeah.
I've been coming out of the military. I was fine. I just tried to stay below radar. Didn't say anything. You know, just yes or no. So you do what you do, and you tried to be stealth back then. You know, don't try to leak anything, and they would pick stuff out. I ended up getting Norman LeCourcier, Lieutenant Norman LeCourcier from 277. He was one of the instructors there. And when the graduation came, you know, you put your wish list out. And I did. Next thing I know, I was already told I'm going to Brooklyn. I was going to 277. I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to Queens. And he goes, no, you idiot. You're going to Brooklyn. I said, what's it like? He goes, it's all burned down. I'm like, oh, all right. Turned out it was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
So 277, 112, right? That was the house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the name of that house, Dave?
Well, when I got there, it was the Wood City Workers.
Okay.
Then it went to the ant. There's all stories. The ant farm. That lasted about 8 months. And then the House of Pain, as it's known as now.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
but
what
that's
I thought it was.
the third name. We were the only firehouse in the city of New York where it was a single engine, and the truck relocated there temporarily in 1973, and it's still there.
Yeah, never left. Yeah.
But we were a single bay, not wide bay, a single bay, front and back. So whoever got back went in the back, and it was all night, in and out, you know. And now you look back at it, we didn't, you know, there's none of that Niederman exhaust system stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, we were taking a feed like coal miners in that place from diesel exhaust. Everything was shiny because of the diesel exhaust.
Yeah. What was it like? What was it like in 85 there when you got there? I mean, you got out of the Rock, you go through your training, you get to the firehouse. In 85, you got guys from the Warriors that are still active in that firehouse, right? So those are your senior guys, right?
It was amazing. I mean, the guys that, you know, everything from, we had Larry McCarthy was a fireman in 120 truck, got promoted, went to 112. He's been in, you know, and he came on in 69. And everybody I worked with, everybody, if you knew, I'd like to know half of what they forgot. Sure. Your brain would be full.
Did you recognize that back then?
Oh, I coming out of the military, because when I was in the military, I went in the end of Vietnam, and all the guys that taught me were Nam guys.
Right.
And I always remember that they could tell you 10 different ways to do the same job, and they were all correct.
Yeah.
It just depended whether you were in the jungle, the desert, winter, blah, 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 what's going on. And a lot of the guys that I worked with and that taught me at Chanute Air Force Base were legitimate guys that were like in Nam and in very not nice neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the makeup of Brooklyn at that time for you? Did Brooklyn go through that Bronx, Harlem fire renaissance that happened years ago, or what did Brooklyn look like?
Well, I mean, that was the origin of the fires when you got down by Broadway and everything. That was when the 77, the blackout,
Yeah.
and that it still looked like we had areas that looked like Berlin. That was, after the war. And, you had the vacant lots, and then we had occupied vacants with the drug dealing. And we had pretty much every type of building from projects down to frames, a lot of frames, brownstones, few, the old log tenements, some of the places. Now, where we used to drill, I'm sure this new generation would file a grievance because, there might be rat feces in there. Get in there, I could give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the guys that, our firehouse, again, I'm appointed here. I have no idea. I remember going to a couple other firehouses when I was even still on probation, overtime or detail. I went to 124 truck, which is attached to 271. I walked in there, and everybody's on the first floor, busy firehouse. Nobody goes to sleep. They all sleep in the kitchen and all that. I went up to the third floor. It's like they could play racquetball. I'm like, this is all for you? I'm coming out of a Japanese suicide sub on Knickerbocker Avenue, and you guys, you have wall-to-wall space up here. It was insane. You could put an indoor driving range in there.
Yeah.
We had, on the third floor is all lockers, one shower insert. I had brought a Mr. Turtle pole in to put on the roof on our veranda for overlooking, for rehab and stuff like that. Second floor was bunk rooms and offices, one bathroom down. It was like, and then you go to these other firehouses. It was amazing. But it's what you're used to.
Yes.
I wouldn't have changed it for anything in the world. The guys were great. The two most important pieces of equipment in any firehouse are the men and the kitchen table. 277, we had the dumpster out in front too, so we watched Skelevision all day and all night. It was,
always entertainment, right?
Well, oh yeah, free entertainment.
Busy companies too, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was, we were back in that area. Everybody was running. I mean, not only were you running, but you had your vacant work. You had your, our outside rubbish fires. But I have pictures now. Of course, everything's in storage. But you go to the back of the tenements, and the rubbish was up to the first floor. The whole backyard would be rubbish.
Right.
So when you had an outside rubbish fire, you kind of had your guard up because if it was against the building, chances are you had a job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think back and looking at, pictures of that time in the years leading up to the 80s, you look at, and you said Berlin, right? It looked like the war. Like there were neighborhoods that were decimated by fire.
We had occupied vacants because they're all, our area, I was told, and you believe it, but our area was number one in the city for crack over all the other places and AIDS.
Yeah.
So it was like it was like being in a zombie movie a lot of times.
Yeah.
It was just amazing what you could see and not see.
Yeah. So I know this weekend, we're getting together for this fundraiser, and it's titled. It has a title to it, which I think Mike picked, in a stroll down Mayday Lane with Dave and Dan. I know you like the title Mayday. We just got here, right?
Oh yeah, Danny Rinaldi. You're going to bring up?
Yeah, Danny Rinaldi from Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah, absolutely.
He's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his Mayday. It's lucky he's alive. Mine, to me, it's it's a long story. Some of the stuff was actually kind of funny, but it just happened that quick. That was the second job of the night tour. It was early in the morning.
And the reason why I bring it up right now, Dave, is just because that's 1987, so it's only 2 years in. You're still at 277 when this happened, right?
Right.
So chronologically, that's why I wanted to go here and kind of hear the story. So, yeah, break it down for us.
Well, we had a couple buffs riding that night, and we had the usual outside running around. You do a couple L-type fires, And back then, car fires were every night. We called them ADVs, abandoned derelict cars. Most of them were stripped and stuff. ERS Express, where they hit the button, we're running around. This job came on. It was on Knickerbocker Avenue, up the street. It was a vacant 4-story old law tenement type, if I remember. I sent you the group photo,
Yeah.
and in the back you can see the square box with half an X in it. We're not supposed to go in, whatever else, but we did. And it was a vacant on the first floor was like a funeral parlor and the rest were supposed to empty apartments, vacant apartments. And it was sort of like, I call it like a volcano fire. They had used so much gasoline to burn this place that it was coming down the stairs. Once you put water on it, it made it worse for a while. But it was fun. It was absolutely a great job. I had the nozzle. Gary Eulendahl, which part of the story I bring up is he's like 6'3". He was my backup man. And it was a fun fire. I mean, that's what we did. We had fun fires in the vacants. And the vacants were a great training area.
Yeah.
You learned how to do everything from wall breaching, how to get upstairs with no stairs, putting ladders up, holes in the roof, and you had to watch yourself because a lot of times there was more than one fire set, so you had to be, your head's on a swivel. My boss that night was Lieutenant Roger Olin. Roger was a legitimate tunnel rat in Vietnam. Literally a K-bar and a 45, and he went in the holes and terminated people. He was very good at it, he'll tell you that. And what a machine as a boss. Literally, we all trusted him. If he flipped over a manhole cover and said, we're going to take a 2.5 down there, okay, we're going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much you trusted these guys because, all our bosses, again, saw tremendous fight. They do the 30-second size up, and you couldn't think fast enough because of the experience they have. They read the smoke. They looked for the fire escapes. They looked at power lines. They looked at this. They looked at the exposures.
Doing it night after night, day after day. Second nature.
The 30-second size up.
Right.
Take guys 4 days to figure this shit out. These guys did it in 30 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. Don't go there. We're going there. We're taking the 2.5 instead of this. There was no why.
Yeah.
With this new generation. It's you do it. And which helped me because you take yourself and you take it seriously. Everything you take, the whole fire service and the military is like a Chinese menu for me. You pick from column A, you pick from column B, you pick from column C, just that you know that when you're going in it and you got the guys that you're in charge of, your number one thing is make sure they're safe. And then you look at that smoke and it just went from brown to black. Well, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. What are you going to do? Do we go this way? You go that way? Look at the floors. You get eventually to learn that you're allergic to building collapses and stuff like that because it's not works out for you very well.
Yeah, it doesn't work out so well. So tell me about it.
So that night we had that fire, and we actually, again, because of what happened, some of the stuff I don't remember, but that group shot we sent you was pretty much almost all the guys there. Roger Olin was there, myself, Gary Eulendahl. Sorry. You calling me?
Nope.
Yeah, all right. No. Anyways, that's a guy I did an interview with. I'll send that to you. It's another bio thing. That's Larry King.
Yeah.
I thought it was you. I saw the show. Anyways.
No worries.
So we were running around that much, that night, and then around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, it was like I guess late spring. We had a garage going up on Irving. It was 6 or 7 bays, really nondescript. Back in the day, when the people across the street lived in the brownstones, were single family, that was their garage. Now
Right.
It was an illegal chop shop place up there. And we had good smoke showing. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like the second bay, you could see where the smoke was pushing. We're first doing. 112 comes in behind the truck. We go into the side. We got to find it. We didn't have all the new crap now, the ticks and everything. So we're going and looking for it. It was banked down pretty good. And then there was a back wall that we went down. And then the middle bay, you could see where the fire was. So we're getting close to it. And unbeknownst to us, these guys had breached a wall. So I hit the wall, and I'm just, I gave Gary the nozzle, and I'm going to climb over the wall, jump in the other side, we'll put the fire out. So when I had my arm resting on the lower part of the wall, I didn't know there was an unsupported whole section of wall above me, which was terracotta block and cobblestone. And as soon as I went up, the thing let go. Now, Gary, like I said, was standing right behind me. And it came like a guillotine straight on me. Nothing happened to him. He didn't even know what happened. It came straight down, crushed me, hit my head, took my helmet off. And I don't pretty much remember anything from that. I was buried under the block a little bit. Gary opened the line. And again, if it wasn't for my helmet, it would have been a plaque on the wall for sure. And they pulled me out. Captain Fowler.
Right? Weren't you?
What's that?
You were trapped.
Well, no, I really don't remember that much about it. I was crushed, hit down, and I was told Captain Fowler from 271 Engine, big guy, he just grabbed me and just pulled me out from underneath the blocks, and somehow I ended up outside. The quote of the day was, at the time, was Tony Lepari, was on 112 truck, and his statement was, "Mayday, we just got here." And I just think that's so appropriate what's going on. You got to be ready to go to work as soon as you get there. We were there 5 minutes, if that, and I was crushed. They took me out, and there happened to be an EMS bus there. And all I remember was I was sitting in the side. I kept saying I wanted my helmet back. That's all I wanted. I was always concerned about my helmet. The old Bugs Bunny, I wanted an Easter egg. I wanted an Easter egg. That's just wanted my helmet. And then I kind of looked down, and I saw my elbow was hanging, like dangling underneath. So I knew that wasn't good with my advanced medical training. So I'm sitting in the ambulance, and then the side door opens, and Danny Gimple, the chauffeur of 112, he opens the door, and he looks in, he goes, "Ooh," and he slammed the door. And now I'm like, holy shit, what? Because they had put some little collar on my fat neck, and I'm like, what the? So I ended up going to Kings County Hospital. I don't remember anything about that. Next thing I know, I'm being released. And some little help team guys there, whatever else. So it's Sunday morning, the Sabbath. And on the way back to Brownsville, I said, well, I got to have something for breakfast. So we stopped at a bodega. I got a 40 to run back. I'm in a sling. That's all it is. So I'm having my 40, rehydrating myself. I come walking into the firehouse as my lieutenant is going up the stairs. He looks at me and his direct quote is, "What the fuck are you doing?" I go, treated released, I guess. I don't know. He goes, "Look at your hand." I look down, my hand is twice the size of what it was, and it's blue. And it's blue all the way down my forearm. So I'm like, okay. He goes, "This is bullshit. You're going to the real hospital." So he got on the phone, made a couple phone calls, and back in the day, we had the FDNY ambulance, which was a bunch of, retired guys on an old walk-in rescue, those small rescues. So eventually they showed up in front of quarters. Two guys each had 1,000 years on the job. So my lieutenant says, "You got to take them to the burn center." So I get in the back of the rescue on a slide seat. The mother-in-law window's right there, so I can see where the guy's sitting in the officer's seat and the chauffeur's over here. Back door's open, and out down Knickerbocker Avenue we go, air horns and sirens. I could have slid out the back. These guys never would have known I was missing. And then the two of them are arguing how to get to the BQE to get to Manhattan. "Oh, God damn it. Bow, bow, bow. Yeah, son of a bitch, man. Bow, bow." All the way. Now we're over the Williamsburg Bridge. And we're tooling. It's Sunday morning, and they're flying. And, all of a sudden you hear the guy that's sitting in the office, "You got to turn right, get on the right lane. God damn, we got there." Bow, bow. And I hear this metal on metal. The rig keeps going, and I see as they had shifted into the right lane, they took the front end off of a Mercedes, a diplomatic Mercedes. Yeah. So now I'm like, all right, whatever. And the guy sitting in the officer's seat, all I can hear him going, "Go, go, goddammit, go." And so now they're going even faster to get off the exit. So while en route to the burn center, I'm now involved in a hit-and-run accident. So, but, whatever. they came by, they slowed down by the burn center, and basically threw my ass out, and they tried to hide. So that's it. So once I was in the burn center, they came in, and I just remember I've been through, I dove in the military, ice water and all that. I was freezing when I got to the burn center because I was still in my boots and everything. And when you got into the center there, they keep it cold, for the bacteria and everything. I was freezing. And then with my advanced military and medical training, I looked down and I watched them shove needles under my fingernails, and I didn't feel it. I knew that was not good. So basically what it was a compartment syndrome. This was all crushed. My elbow was off. My neck was messed up. And I had some minor burns and cuts and stuff like that. And then they admitted me. And basically I spent a week there. And Dr. Madden came in. It's my parents were there. That was Sunday. By Tuesday, because of the damage of it, they had this thing elevated, iced, and IVs, and they had cut some and let all the blood and pressure, everything out. And he came in like Tuesday morning. He goes, if things don't continue or get better soon, we may have to amputate because of the circulation problem, blah, 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 blah. And then later Tuesday afternoon, he comes in and he goes, listen, we're going to try this stuff. It's called naproxen. Now it's over the counter. But back then they were going to give it to me IV. And he said, listen, we know for a fact that naproxen is known to cause serious ulcers. But I said, Doc, I know a shitload of firemen with ulcers. I don't know any one-armed fireman. Do what you got to do. And it worked. I spent a week there, and it worked out. I mean, I was on medical leave. I was actually literally on medical leave for like 6 months. And then
you gained full function of your arm?
Well, yeah, they when I saw the doctor, they started with the other PT people, and they told me what to do. So as soon as I could, I did.
Yeah.
They wanted to fuse my neck too, and I said, nah, we'll wait off on that.
Did it ever occur to you that maybe you could go off the job, or you were just waiting to get back to the firehouse?
No, there's no way.
Yeah.
No, if I could come back, I was going back. I was not looking for, 3/4. Oh, you can get through. No.
I wasn't saying you were looking for it. I was just thinking, this was a pretty defining injury within your career that probably could have put you out if you.
Well, if they, I was fighting tooth and nail. Not,
Right.
Right. I wasn't even worried about the lifestyle of a one-armed guy. I just wanted not to lose the job.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that was it. That was my number one motivation.
When you got
later on, I ended up getting two shoulder operations, line of duty with a guy named Dr. Mendoza out of Lenox Hill. The guy was a machine.
Yeah.
Little Filipino guy, hands about this big, surgeon, and he was just, not only was he just he's a lead surgeon at Lenox Hill, he did the Jets and the Rangers, team doctor. And he told me once, that he likes working on firemen and football players. I said, okay, Doc, I'll bite. Why? And he goes, they both love their jobs and they listen to what I say and they do it.
Yeah.
He says, I get other people, construction workers, office workers. He even said cops. Hey, Doc, can I get 2 more months off? Can I get another, this Dr. Summer off? Can I get the whole summer off? He said the biggest problem with firemen and football players is they try to come back too soon.
Yeah, I believe that.
I had to laugh.
Yeah. What for you for the course of healing? Did you go light duty? Were you just out of the fire? Like, what did that look like?
I was out 6 months, and when I was still on medical leave, I started doing the PT stuff. Then they finally, we had Annie Tobin was our nurse down there at the medical office. She was awesome. She said, just promise me you'll call me once a week to make sure you're alive. I know you're not doing anything stupid. I'm not playing highlight and I'm not playing lacrosse. So I did. And then she's, you got to come down. And then after that, I went light duty for like another 2 months, but I was way ahead of the PT schedule.
Okay.
So then
you came back to 277?
Yep. Absolutely.
What was that like for you getting back on the horse, man? After being getting your
Well,
ass kicked.
my first tour back, I think I came in as a night tour, and as soon as I walked in, because they had 3 jobs in the day tour, you miss that smell. You just know
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
had jobs,
Right.
and it was, you clicked your heels. It's good to be home, Dorothy.
Yeah.
You know, and
It
of
just,
course the typical stuff was as soon as I walked in, they knew I was coming in.
oh, yeah.
They missed me. They bucketed.
Game
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
the water landed behind me.
They're making up for months and months of you not being there.
Oh yeah, it was all fair game
That's
because
right.
but their story was when I reported in that day, I was prior military. Matter of fact, Gary Ulendall was on the house watch studying for the lieutenant's exam, and I came in and saluted, and probationary Russell reporting his order. He said, "Oh boy, we're gonna have some real problems with this idiot." And then as Tony Lipari says, no words were so far off base about that it was great. 277 and 112 was like high school without the homer.
Right.
It was just a lot of fun, a lot of fires, a lot of running.
It gave you a good start to your career. It was a good place to be.
We had great bosses there.
Yeah.
Great senior guys. And out the door you'd go. I mean, there was a ton of engines around because that's how it was. There was more engines than trucks.
And Brooklyn's got a lot of companies on top of each other, right?
Yeah, but it gets thin in a hurry.
Especially when
fire
duty's there, right? Yeah.
Guy goes out for an outside rubbish fire, and then they're giving a 1075 extra engine and truck because it's in the shaft and it's going up.
Right.
And then we would come back, and the relocators would have caught jobs too sometimes. So you come back, and there's like a shitload of companies all over the place, and the pit was quite joyful.
I bet. So then talk to me. So 277 was a good go, but you didn't stay there.
No, it was a lime green rig. I was on the onion skin, to go across the floor. So I was there for a while. When I first got there, one of the guys in the truck was going to nursing school, and he needed a mutual partner. So I worked one tour in the truck, one tour in the engine, one tour in the truck. My mutual partner, Jack Brady, who was going to nursing school, and he was on the Notre Dame track team, so he was quite the guy.
Yeah.
And it was just a great firehouse, just amazing. It was a fraternity.
Mm-hmm. The way it should be.
We lost Tommy Hoey 2 weeks ago. He did 40 years in 112 truck.
Wow.
And Hoey was just that guy. If you didn't like Hoey, I hate you. And he had the floating NORAD eye. You could never sneak up on him. He failed sniper school twice, and we know why. But my very first tour, I'm on the back step of the rig. The engine's like 2 feet from the kitchen. Now everybody'd have all kinds of issues with it. Hoey walks out. Lipari's showing you the back of the rig, and Hoey's at the back of the rig looking up, and the NORAD thing's going back and forth his eye. And Lipari punches me and goes, "Is he looking at me or is he looking at you?" And I go, "I think he's looking at both of us." And then Hoey just laughs and walks away.
So from 277, you went to HAZMAT? Is that right?
Yeah, I just tried it. I was there for a cup of coffee and a T-shirt. Tried it. It was nice in a way. It was amazing because you could do 5 boroughs in a day.
Right.
You go to an acid spill in Staten Island. On the way back, you stopped in Queens for something. Something at JFK. It was pretty wild because I had done HAZMAT before, but
in the Air Force.
Yeah, so when we did HAZMAT weapons, we did all kinds of stuff. But when you listen to the scanner, I'm listening back in Brooklyn, you hear, 277 giving a 1075, and I go, shit. You miss all that.
I bet.
And so we're there, but it was great. I had 2 captains there. Captain Galler got promoted, and Jack Fanning. And Jack was a living legend. We lost him on 9/11, but what a great guy. We had a good crew there, all senior guys, McArdle, Kevin Smith, who was also lost on 9/11, Ingram, who was the chief of HAZMAT when, whatever. I worked with him. So we had a lot of laughs. You learned a lot, did a lot of stuff.
When the company, I mean, that was what? Where was that? Mid '80s when you were there then? Late '80s?
That was 80. What the hell was it? I forget it. Whatever. They had Rescue 4 used to be the HAZMAT company. And then
before HAZMAT.
Yeah,
right?
way before HAZMAT started.
Yeah.
They were the guys.
Yep.
And then the Queensboro president, the guy ended up committing suicide over the parking stuff. I can't remember his name now. But he pushed for it, and that's why it stayed in Queens. And it was in the quarters of 288. Back then, 288 was just a straight engine. That was pre-squad. And it was downtown Maspeth. But from there, you could go anywhere in a hurry because you get on the LIE, you could go there, you could go there. And it was just wild just to be able to go citywide, like we go for a drill down by Kennedy and we're on Cross Bay Boulevard for lunch, and I remember our first run was myself and John Dory from 280 Engine. We were both ghetto slugs, and we took a run into Manhattan, our very first official run, and all we did was sit on the back step, and we saw more hot women in 3 minutes than we did our entire time in Brooklyn combined.
A little bit different down there, huh?
Oh my God, they'd stop traffic,
That's hilarious.
It's like most of the people in our neighborhood, you couldn't drink them pretty on St. Patty's Day,
Yeah.
But it's like, holy.
Well, I know talking to a lot of guys from the FDNY that had very colorful careers and have gone on to teach and speak and so on. A lot of them trickled through the HAZMAT company, which I thought was pretty interesting. But it was, a lot of the same type of thinking was, trying to round out their education and round out their experience.
I just was doing it to try it because, like I said, we did some weird stuff in the military. We got stuff. And I tried it. We had an interview. We did all the training and all that stuff. And later on in life, I was on the Hammer team, and we did a couple other things, doing the decon unit and stuff like that. I just didn't mind doing it. You're always doing stuff, go to the Rock, you're teaching, you're working with the CPC companies and everything else. And, you get to meet more guys.
But it was still hard to hear 277 transmitting that 1075 when you're across. Second alarm box
804, you're like, oh, well,
Yeah. So how long was your stint? You're running, you said a cup of coffee and a T-shirt. So what's that in
just
real
about a
world
year.
terms? About a year.
Just a year. And like I said, I kept looking over the.
Yeah.
It's sort of like golf. I'm looking over the water hole to see the green, and I just still want to go to fires. And then the rumor was that they're going to start this company, reopen 41 engine, and it's going to be an enhanced engine.
Yes.
Because of the politics, you couldn't use the S word squad. And the first captain was John Keenan. I had 5 different captains up there. John Keenan and some of the guys, we nicknamed him Captain Collapse because like every third fire we went to, the buildings fell down. So, it was fun. It was different, and the guys there were awesome. And, it's not going to be this. And I said, I don't care if we paint our hooks pink. And I went over to the map and I said, from Fordham Road all the way down to Hunts Point, and then from 116th Street to 160th Street in Harlem, chances are something's going to happen. There's going to be a fire.
It's a good place to be.
It was. And then it was like you learned so much there. I mean, everything from double H's, O's to, below grade. We did everything. It was just, when we first got there, it was kind of tough because the chiefs didn't really know what to expect.
Well, that's what we were doing, right? It was kind of a new thing, right? This enhanced engine company.
It was very frustrating in the beginning because one day you're going to the 27th Battalion, then the next day you weren't. Then the next day you were going to go to the 13th, on the Bronx side. It was just all politics, all BS. And, some guys left out of frustration. I said, I'm staying because this side of the river and that side of the river remain the same. Whether we go to additional boxes, that's fine. And then after a while, they're expecting you. Where are you? What you doing? What's going on?
But it was in those early days, though. It was the squad concept. It was You had your own first due, and then you acted as, you know, a regular engine in the stack, but also went to fires and emergencies.
Well, I always said, you know, we were doing, it was the best of both worlds in many ways. You did Harlem and the Bronx. You're doing truck work and never gave up the nozzle. You know, and we would split the company once we started getting going. Like, you know, the chief said that this engine needs help humping the line, so half we'd go help hump the line. The other guys would go to the roof or whatever else. And then once towards the end, you know, they were telling us get to the floor above, get to the exposure, blah blah blah. So, you know, and then after I left in '94, they started using the S word, the squad word, and stuff. You know, because the surrounding companies were, you know, very spiteful of us in the very beginning. You know, so I got detailed. I always take the details. I was a tourist. I want to go. Oh, I'm not going to leave the squad. I said, oh, shit. All right, you send me to 90 and 44, one of the best parking lots on the job, and you know you get to go there, and the guys were great. 83 and 29, so you started getting there, and you know you meet the guys. 71 and 55, you know that was a great firehouse. 16 and 17 were the ones that really kind of like were, but you wait out long enough, eventually it all works out. It's like you've always been there.
Yeah, I mean, but being a tourist too opens up your eyes to the different companies, right? Because you're not gonna be there forever. You ended up promoting, right? So you took the lieutenant's test, right?
Yeah, and despite my best efforts, I passed. You know, and you know, I just took the test to see it. I mean, if I had stayed, I was going to be in 41. I had an interview with Ray Downey for 2, and I was on the list, the top of the, you know, to go across and maybe go to rescue 2. And then 94 came around. I was deployed. We were out in the middle of nowhere for Bosnia and the Azores, and then my wife.
So you got deployed during your time then?
No, we used to fly. Yeah, we'd fly away, whatever. It's just normal. And I got on a satellite phone, and my wife goes, "One of your idiot friends called." All right, what did he say? He says, "I got good news and bad news." I go, "All right." He says, "The good news is you're getting promoted. The bad news is you ain't coming here, fucko." I go, "Was it Mike Esposito?" She goes, "Yeah, that's him from Rescue 2. So now I'm trying to convince my wife that maybe I should postpone getting promoted because you had to give the new company at least 2 years. So that's fine with me. So I'm trying to push that across and sneak it across my wife, and
that didn't fly.
No, it was like a fart in a spacesuit. Didn't go over well.
Not well.
2 years of studying, and you want to hang out with your idiot friends, blah, 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 blah. So,
yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
So you came back from your deployment, and you walked right into a white shirt.
Oh, well, almost, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I got promoted out of 41, and, you know, went to flips, and, you know, the whole sock thing was starting to flip around, and I said, well,
that was what, early 90s, mid 90s?
94.
Because that's when SOC really started expanding greatly, correct? Under Ray Downey, right?
Right. It was, you know, all that stuff. And I said, let me try something. So I started looking, and there was a captain up north that was wanted me because he remembered me, Billy Chilson. And, you know, I lived in Westchester. There's no reason. I'm not going to go back to Brooklyn now. I'm taking a bridge out of my life. And the South Bronx was, you know, pretty much filled up. So I started looking, and they were talking about these battalions up north. You know, the occupied North Bronx now. The South Bronx was all the elements were moving north, and the 1-5 was starting to climb in 1075s and stuff. I said, all right. So let me see what precinct they're in. So I looked up, and they're in the 4-7 precinct. Number 1 and number 2 in homicides and assaults. I go, that's where I'm going.
Going there.
That's where I'm going.
It's good for
job
business.
Security.
Yeah.
So I ended up in 62 in the 2-7 battalion, and it was awesome.
62 engine. what was it when you got there? What was the reception? I mean, they always say like in especially in New York City, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but just talking with people that I know that have been on the job, but like as the company boss, you're kind of like the visitor, aren't you? It's kind of like the guy's firehouse, right? And so every
Well,
firehouse has its own personality and so on. So what's it like walking in, not being the back step guy now?
well, I mean, I had been covering in the seventh division, which that's what that is, and I had been in pretty much all. I helped the eights out a lot of times because they just I would go to places nobody else would really want to go, and then that would come back and benefit you in numerous ways. So
I would
like
think, yeah.
when the eight Gary Valentino guy, he would call up and go, "Hello, Lou. All right, Gary, where are you sending me?" He goes, 242 engine. I go, I didn't even know we had a 242. Where the hell is that? Well, when a Verrazano lands in Brooklyn, it's right there. I'm like, oh, there's nobody else between here and there that you can go. So I went. It took an hour and a half to get there, and I met the lieutenant, and he had the Mr. T starter kit, the gold chains, the whole 9 yards. And I watched him walk out the door, take a right, and he was home.
Yeah.
Holy shit. 2:30 in the afternoon, he came in and threw me out of the firehouse to get home. 5 hours to get home from 242 back to Westchester. Just traffic. No accidents, no Godzilla attacks, nothing. Just 5 hours. Because, you start sitting in the kitchen, drink coffee, shoot shit. It'd be 4th. I wouldn't get home till 11 o'clock at night. You know. And then when there was details to Manhattan, I would go there. And I was a tourist. Took 15 truck one day. We were doing BI. We ended up on the roof of this building. I can't remember the address, overlooking the Verrazano Bridge. We're like on the 33rd floor, 44th, wherever it was. This office it was like an apartment. The guy had his own humidor. He had his own sauna in there. There's everything. This is just a guy's office.
Right.
He's looking straight out of Verrazano, New Jersey, Statue of Liberty. You could touch. So then the guy that was escorting us goes, "You want to go to the roof? I go, "On top? He goes, "Yeah." So there we are, right on the top, looking straight down, I don't know, 70 stories, whatever the hell it was. And there's two giant bulkheads there. And I remember the guy walking around going, "Oh, wow." So we come around the corner, and there is a man lift, boom type, like 70-foot boom lift. The tires are dry rotted off of it. So when they were breaking this thing down with a kangaroo crane, they never took this thing down. So the guy goes, I bet we're still paying rent on this thing. Like once a month the check goes, and he just stamped it. Typical fireman from 15 truck, they go over, they flip the hood. The thing had 8 hours on the motor, diesel motor. So now they're thinking about how they're going to take this thing apart and put it in the freight elevator. We're going to ship it down. I go, I'm in. I don't care. So, I mean, I didn't care. Then one day I was in Great Jones Street, and we had drill, and a friend of mine was bartending at McSorley's.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a full drill at McSorley's.
It's good. You gotta know it.
No, yeah, well, and then we were in the basement. We were all over the place, and I don't really care. It's over with. I don't really care. So I get a 6 of lights and a 6 of darks to bring back. So, okay. So I let the guys know for lunch if you want to have that. And the senior guy knocks on my door and goes, we don't really do that here. I know where you work. I said, okay, thank you. So I gave me a 12-pack for the ride home.
For the ride home.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, years ago, right? I mean, that's McSorley's too. God, that's an institution.
And what happened going all the way back to Sunday when I got released from the burn center, it's Sunday, I can't drive. I'm still like on morphine and all the other. My whole hospital stay was a whole different story too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into that, but
we can go wherever you want to go. I mean, I do want to talk about obviously September 11th. I know that was certainly
Joe Smith
comes to you.
Joe Smith was in 277 when he first transferred in. Everybody gave him such hard shit. Joe Smith. Nobody's named Joe Smith. What are you, like IG? Who's
Some
your
of those
sister,
average
Jane
men,
Doe?
right?
You know, he was a boxer, great guy, absolutely. Him and Doreen are just absolute. But so Joe Smith, the real Joe Smith, picks me up from the burn center. It's a Sunday. He goes, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I have a craving for crackers, cheese, onions, and some ales." Off the McSorley's we go. So we go down to McSorley's. We park right on the sidewalk. We come in. My friend's there, and we just doing our thing. And then I had an FDNY patch, and I put a sticker on the back, and I signed and dated, and it's still on the wall in McSorley's, down there where the bar ends and the dining room is. It's still pinned there.
Okay.
So fast forward years and years later, I get a friend of mine calling me, bombed. They're all doing a pub crawl, and he's going, this guy Brian Olaf, like, dude, we've been having a few beers. I go, yeah, no shit, Helen Keller could figure that out. He goes, I'm never gonna doubt all your fucked up stories you have. I go, why? He goes, I'm looking at the patch. I'm at McSorley's, and there's your patch. He goes, I said, you doubted me? I'm like, whatever. But he goes, so yeah, the patch, I guess, is still there.
Yeah.
From when I got out of the burn center. And, so when I was in the burn center, we got a lot of visits. I got a lot of visits. So my cousin comes in one night. He's his own businessman, Fordham graduate and stuff. He comes in a tux with a briefcase. And he comes right up and he goes, I'm here to see David Russell, New York City Fire Department. Oh, yeah, he's upstairs. This way, doctor. Up he goes. He opens up his briefcase, and he has 30 airline booze bottles. Perfect. And guys are coming in, and because I went from the field right to the hospital, I had my rubber boots. And the rubber boots, when you pull them up, they exactly hold one bag of ice and a case of beer between the two legs. So I had my own little bar up there, and guys are coming and visiting. And then other people on my floor were coming in, other patients. So we had popping a couple tins here and that behind the soundproof curtains.
Yep.
And then I forgot. There's a guy's tapping on my curtain, and he's going, knock, knock, knock. Yo, bro, can you spare one? I'm like, yeah. So we open it up. This guy comes in on a wheelchair, and he's like he's completely face wrapped, completely up. And I'm like, at this point, I go, holy shit, it's the Invisible Man. So he pulled his things back. We gave him a straw, and he's drinking a beer. We found out later on from one of the interns who I supported. And this guy was in the witness protection program, and he was having his whole face kind of redone so he could go back. So not only was it the Invisible Man, there's some mobster guy I was giving beers to. Yes, he became one, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So
that's crazy.
It worked out well. I mean, it was a rough time.
Sure. But
a good time. And then two guys, John Gaines, and I'm losing my mind, the captain, lieutenant, they were in 45 truck. They got burnt up. So they were upstairs above me. And the guys were coming in. My father was coming in, bringing some stuff, and he'd go upstairs and support those guys. And John Gaines is like, he's a probie. And he's like, is it always like this? He goes, sit back and enjoy it, kid. You'll be fine. So it was a good time at a bad time at the same time.
There's something to be said for that, right? I mean, the fact that, you had that, the comfort and the shenanigans and all of it still going on, that they were right there beside you, allowing for this nonsense to continue. It's that slice of normalcy, right? Like you need that.
For us, it's snafu, situation normal, all fucked up.
Right.
That's us. And growing up in a firehouse like that, being in the military, and that, it's just, you wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
As my father says, in the Irish dictionary, you'll find sympathy between shit and syphilis. So enjoy your day.
Very, very articulate. I super. Yeah, that's right there. Dave, I want to ask you this. Growing up in the FDNY, and I say growing up because, you grew up there. And, Can
I stop you there?
Sure.
Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman.
Right.
Well, son, you can't do both.
That's right. Well, you know what? There's something about that, though. You know, I mean, it's like this conversation. There's just something about it, right? It's fun. I think we can't lose track of that. And I watch you tell these stories, and you validated that, you know, even your own guys thought you were full of shit, and yet they come to realize that at least half the stories are somewhat true. But
Oh
you know
no,
what
they're
but you know what I love about that, though? It's the spirit of it, right? And I like to believe that they are all true, and that is what this is supposed to be about. It's characters and
well.
fun
Here's the
and
deal. I mean,
enjoying the
and
job.
Danny and I, and all of us of
Yeah.
our generation, our age, I grew up worrying about fires, not feelings. If I
Yes.
offended you, my day's complete.
Yeah.
Your mother may think you're special. I don't.
Well, you know what? Because you were being humbled every day on the fire ground. There's something, you know, like there's something about that where over time comes experience, and with experience comes humility, because the only way you gain experience is by getting knocked on your ass, and you got to pick yourself back up. And when that's happening on the fire ground day in and day out, when you're going to fire 1, fire 2, fire 3, and then you go to your night tour and you're doing it all over again, there's something about that where there's no other time for the nonsense.
I
Right?
would say, and I've thought about this. We are probably the only agency, I mean fire service, where we take responsibility for things that are out of our hands.
Out of our control.
You come in, we are the ones that what happened? We lost 3 kids last night. We take it as a hit to us.
Yeah.
They were probably dead by the time the box was being transmitted, but we saved 3, but we also lost 3, and we take the hit for it. We don't pass off responsibility. We take it to heart. You turn the corners, blowing out the windows. You get there, it's nice. You stretch the line up, you knock it down, and then you start hearing the code. 10:45, 10. It's like, oh shit. Then you find out they're kids or elderly, whatever. It wasn't our fault, but you always hear the guys say, we lost 3, we lost 2 last night. We. It's not, we're not blaming somebody else, even though it's way out of our control. So.
It's a very good point. I hope we don't lose track of that we. I hope that the fire service today is not the I or
Well,
it, and not the we. I mean,
I've done probie classes, and there's there's Generation Z, as far as I'm considered. Z is for zero, because they're all expect no respect. Why do I have to do it? How come Russell ain't doing it? Well, Russell's got 18 years on the job. He's a chauffeur, and then you hear, yes, so he's a fireman just like me. I made so much coffee when I was a probie. The commissar was yelling at me. I was costing the company money. Spoon hit the table, boom, it's gone in the washing machine. You just did everything. Last to eat, first done, and it's because it's tradition. And it's not demeaning, it's not racial, it's all this bullshit that you're going to come up with.
Yep.
But now you got guys that are 28 years old still living in their mom's basement. She does her laundry. You're going to the firehouse. You're gonna say that committee work is demeaning. You're gonna say that to a bunch of Marines that have to clean their barracks. You're gonna say that to SEAL Team 6 guys that clean their barracks. There's no subcontractors. Your mother's not coming in. You're doing it. And guess what? Within 6 months to a year, you're not that guy anymore. And you should start moving up. Seniority does mean something. So does merit.
Yeah. Can't lose track of that for sure.
No.
I just find that when you talk to people, the way you put that before about the we lost 3 tonight, that's powerful when you break that down and you think about where it's coming from. It's just that is the true core values of what the fire service stands for, and the integrity of the individuals that are on the front lines. I mean, and that's the way it should always be, for sure. So I want to ask you this. I mean, I was starting to walk down that road with that, is that, you had quite the upbringing, a lot of great companies, a lot of fire duty, dealing with your own personal injuries through your Mayday, getting back on the line, going through different companies. You find yourself as a lieutenant up in the Bronx. Life is pretty good, I would think. And then September 11th comes. And a couple of quotes. I read some articles that you were quoted in, or some interviews that some news agencies had done with you, and so on. But a volcano at the end of Manhattan, or I got a horizontal tornado. I mean, these are very powerful descriptions that you are quoted saying, and your story is coming down into the aftermath of what had transpired before you got there. So, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to kind of hear a little bit about your experience because it is powerful from what I've read, and I'd love for you to share some of that.
Yeah, I always, it was my generation's Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And I was off that day,
Mm-hmm.
and my house up in Westchester was completely gutted. Literally, you could look all the way through. I mean, I had gutted. It was an ounce of sheetrock there. We were living in a small room above, my wife, myself. We rescue Rottweilers. We take the dogs that nobody else wants. And I happened to be, I can tell you, when the phone call, I was using a Sawzall on the first floor, cutting a bathroom, and I happened to hear the phone ring. So I picked it up, and I brought my wife down to our level, and she knows the terms. And I said, what's up? She goes, you're going to work. What are you talking about? She says, you're going to work. I said, all right, what's going on? She goes, well, they're saying a small plane just hit the World Trade Center. And I'm like, bullshit. So she goes, it's on every channel. So I went upstairs, walked up, and I had my little military TV, black and white. I can plug it in for 110, 220 with the antennas. And it was channel 5, and I see the tower burning. All right. And I just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said, that was no small plane. I got to go. So then I called the division, and, they answered. I said, what's going on? Is there a recall, anything going on? And he said, they asked the chief at this time, no. So I hung up the phone, and I made a decision that could have changed my life. I had my gear in my car, but I said, as a boss, I'm just going to go to 62. So I got in the car, started heading, and then on the radio, I was on the Merritt Parkway during rush hour, doing much faster than the posted speed limit and making excellent time. And the second plane hit, and I said, that's it, we're at war. So went to 62, we got there, guys were coming in, and we stripped everything out of the tool room. Out of the storage room. I didn't take anything off the rigs because the rigs are in service. And we gathered up our stuff. We ended up going to the 7th Division on Webster Avenue. Went in and grabbed every spare radio they did, took their spare equipment. And myself and Tough Tony Catalana from 79, we walked across the street. And there was a city bus sitting there at the stop. And I probably wasn't very PC when I told the civilians to get off the bus. And they were kind of, and again, I had verbal blackout, and I also have self-diagnosed Tourette's. And the fuckers got off the bus, and we had 50 or 60 guys coming across the street, civilian clothes, regular clothes, with their bunkers.
Just coming in from.
We had radios, hooks, Halligan's ropes. We took anything and everything we could think of. And the bus driver, now, of course, the plan was to get down there as soon as possible, but I hijacked a flexi bus, 2-piecer, no police escorts, and from the Bronx, trying to just get across Fordham Road was quite interesting. And everybody's yelling, "Go, go!" And I remember standing right behind the bus driver the whole ride. His foot, if it wasn't metal, he would have had his foot right down to the street. Go, God damn it, go, go, go! We went, and he knew where he was going. We ended up, I would talk to the guys. Tony had a cell phone, so I called my wife once. I said, we're heading in. I'll see you when I see you. Click. And we ended up on the FDR Drive. And then when we came out around, now when you start realizing, taking a second, situational awareness, there's no cars southbound and there's no cars northbound. It was just kind of eerie. Sort of like a Stephen King movie.
Yeah.
And then once we got around the United Nations, you look straight down. And I call it the horizontal tornado. You could just see the black smoke leaving Manhattan, going across the river right into Brooklyn. And then he got us all the way down to the Brooklyn Bridge up to Broadway, buried that thing. And I regret not getting this guy's name and number because as we were going down, all the guys were just getting out of their clothes, their private boots, their private jackets, all the civilian clothes. I said, if you think about it, could you get our guy's stuff back to the firehouse? I found out like a week later, somehow he got that flexi bus out of Manhattan, back to Webster Avenue to the firehouse, the Division 7, 48 and 56, and he got their stuff back. So, that's a positive. I don't know how he did it. If I saw him today, I'd like to shake his hand and say thank you. And then we had the two.
We were talking about traffic real quick. You're just heading south. I mean, the adrenaline's obviously flowing. You got a lot of guys that are amped up, ready to go. You're not knowing what you're going to do. Both buildings are still standing at that point, or did they?
I think the towers were down.
They were.
Yeah, we didn't see any jumpers. We didn't see the towers come down.
Okay.
We were there later on. We right in front when Building 7 came down. Okay. And your whole timeline is just completely screwed. I thought 7 came down around 2:00 in the afternoon, but it was like 5, whatever. It was like a sober alcoholic blackout because you just went from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And we had the Flanagan brothers. One was in 62, one was in 79. Their dad died line of duty. So we had decided that we're going to separate these guys. God forbid something happens. Their mom didn't need to lose anybody. So Glenn went with it, and we left John from my house, 62, on Broadway, working with a hijacked old battalion wagon, which was like the forward field com, because everything we were talking to went through Staten Island because Manhattan was just insane. And find out later on, of course, the Spirit Battalion wagon died, and John ended up on the pile anyways. But, we had greatest intentions, like the Sullivan brothers, separate them. And
sure, engine company down there was 62.
No, not at that time. 32, again, found out later on, 32 was relocated down to 20 truck, and the story was, Sean O'Donnell, a couple guys said they're in their quarters and they see this guy fireman covered in dust and everything, and he's just walking down the street, and he's just walking. It was a guy from 20 truck. He had no idea where he was. He was just trying to go home. So 32 guys grabbed him, brought him in. We got up, came up on the street, and the guys went into school, and they ripped off the whiteboard off of school, and that was their command board. They were trying to make as best as they could, and then out through it was like a nuclear winter, the blizzard, and I remember this guy came up with a white hat. He said he had an engine company in trouble. He needs help. So I had my guys with me. We tried to follow him, and we lost him. And he literally just disappeared like a blizzard. Couldn't find him. And I didn't realize where we were until much later on, because the tower's like a built-in compass. You could be in Queens and know where you are in the city.
Yeah, right.
By the towers.
Absolutely.
Didn't realize we had walked right down Liberty Street past 10 and 10, and there was a rig on a corner that was pumping, and there was nobody around, and it was burning from bumper to bumper.
Yeah.
And then just like we went from one situation to the next situation to the next, and it just, we ended up walking down, I think it's Church, and there was no water. All the hydrants, all the water mains were broken. And one of my guys, Mike Gaffney, who's absolute mechanic, and makes MacGyver look lame. We had found a rig, an engine down by building 4 and 5. I think I sent you that picture of the engine.
Yeah.
That engine, Mike took an axe, chopped the windshield out of it, had a broken airline or something because the brakes were locked up. And further up the corner, we found a hydrant that was actually working. And I carry golf tees in my helmet. Everybody, my helmet looks like a tag sale. I got everything on it, chocks and nails and everything else. And Mike chopped the windshield out, and he was a bus mechanic, diesel mechanic. I don't know how he knew it. He took the headlights out on the chauffeur's side. There's all kinds of hoses, lines, and everything. I gave him a golf tee. He plugged it. We found some duct tape off a tower ladder, and that was enough to get the air to come back to release the brakes, put the hydrant on the rig, and that rig supplied the tower ladder. And that was like the first water over on building 4 and 5. Then we just moved on. And they had told us Building 7 was off limits. It's already been done. And the ground was shaking when we were walking. We're just bypassing. We're literally 25, 30 feet from it. And the ground was shaking. And I have a couple of pictures. The fire, like on a 20-something floor, was running a plenum. And as fast as we were walking, it was just tracing us. And the sound was the high-rise glass was coming out of the windows and just hitting the sidewalk, and it was shaking the earth. It was pretty amazing. And we came around the other corner, and I'm losing my mind now because we just mentioned his name. He was a deputy at the time. I hear him, and he's talking to Jay Jonas. We're on the street, like, Jay, and you can hear the frustration in his voice, like, he knows exactly where he is. Come get me. He didn't realize how bad it was. I'm in the stairwell between this floor, and you can hear he's really getting irked. Jay, we're going to come and get you. Relax. We're going to get to whatever else. And then Al Fuentes, who was a lieutenant in 112, and then he went to Rescue 2, and now he's trapped in a Marine car. He was trapped inside. So you recognize the voices. You know, as big as our job is, when you work with guys, you know guys' voices. And Al was trapped in his car, and there was a couple other Maydays, but you just didn't know where it was coming from. Then we just moving on, and I decided to take the guys to the river, the Hudson River, because it was just so shitty. So I said, it's got to be better because there's going to be air coming in. And we ended up walking over by the water, and it was just a tornado of dust. Shit, we're better back on the pile. So we went back on the pile, and then you just went from one thing to another. There was a lady, the stuff you see because it's just like an alcoholic blackout. There was half of this lady sticking out from an I-beam. I mean, the I-beam is bigger than a kitchen table. There's nothing you can do about that. And then we getting lines stretched, putting water on fires, and then I remember I'm standing on something. I'm like, what is this? And Woogie goes, you're on the center divider of the West Side Highway. No, I'm not. And you start looking around, and there's the financial center. And oh, that is the West Side. Yeah, I'm on the center divider because it was just one thing after another. So,
was it for you? It was, I mean, losing track of time. You said that before, but I have to imagine. I mean, it was a different world. I'm sure time stood still in a way, and then all of a sudden,
I remember this guy showed up and he goes, "Did you hear?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "They hit the Pentagon." I'm like, "Bullshit." He goes, "It's someplace in Pittsburgh." I'm like, "What?" And the guy had the same radio my father had my entire life as a kid, the little black 9-volt AM radio. He had News 88 on. And they said, the Pentagon is now in flames and, Shanksville. I'm like, what? So it was I had a flashback because my father, he worked all kinds of weird shifts. So it would not be unusual for my father to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning shaving, like he's going to get ready to go for a morning tour or something. And he always had News 88 and that black radio. And because when the towers came down, there was no cell phones, there was nothing at all. And power of the radio, News 88 on AM radio, now there's this whole push that they want to get rid of AM radio in cars. I said, no. When I packed up, I called a 911 bag. First thing I put in there was the AM radio with spare 9-volt batteries, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
When did you have a second to kind of take in the scope? I mean, you guys.
Saturday.
I read a quote that you had. It said, "We kept the air packs on our backs to save the air for the rescues that never happened."
True.
That is deep and powerful, and that stirs up every type of emotion you can possibly think of. And so I think about you guys went into fight mode, right? Commandeer the bus. We're getting down there. We're going to go to work. Our brothers and sisters need us. We're going. You get there. The public needs us. You get there. Really, other than...
It was when you stood there and you saw on different corners, because I don't remember, it was all these EMS people, and they were ready to go to work.
Yeah.
They were just there. And the most frustrating thing is there was nobody to bring to them,
Right.
period. But at the same time, they had their IVs with saline solution. That was our instant eye wash stations.
Yes.
And why didn't you wear the mask? I mean, the paper mask and all that. I said, well, because the problem is all that dust in the air was cement dust. And when the condensation from your breath hit that dust, it turned to concrete. And you could not breathe through the mask. So then we're just waiting, to find pass alarms going off or Mayday, the blue glove waving. Any civilians, we didn't care. It was just a complete wasteland of death. But you didn't know, until you started going on later on when you started. I was there for 6 months, so.
But you said Saturday was the day that you were able to take pause and just have some reflection on what was in front of you.
What happened was we worked Tuesday night, and I don't know what time it was. It had to be 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. We were already up in the Millennium Hotel next to 90 West. We were up there searching, and what we were doing was popping doors and just putting them against the windows to try to keep the fire out because we no water. Our radios were all dead hours ago. So we got into this hotel. My guys, we went in. I immediately forced where the custodians are, and I still have them, the master keys. I said, why pop doors? We're going to use the keys. Well, I had that kind of luck. I was at the airport when my ship came in. A week before that in the hotel, I found out they had switched to the pass cards, the swipe cards. No power, so we ended up popping, I don't know, 50-something doors to go in and pop, ripping off closet doors and whatever, apartment doors, and putting them on the windows to keep the fire out. So we ended up sitting for a while. I have no idea what it was. We were shot. Your legs are bleeding, your arms are bleeding from the dust, everything inside. You rubbed raw. And he said, listen, you want to sleep here? You want to try and get back to the Bronx, get back to the firehouse? So the guy said, let's try and get back. So as we're walking out, we end up going back to 1 and 7 on Duane Street. And it was just all kinds of people there. And that's where we saw that French guy that was doing the videotape that day.
Yes.
He was in the bay walking around. And one of my guys goes, there's a French guy. He goes, Manhattan. Surprised we don't have a chimp on a unicycle rolling around there. It's Manhattan. There's all kinds of weird shit. I said, all right, now I got to try and figure a way to get out of here. So I walked out and I made a right and went down. I'll say Broadway. And there's a cop there. I go, is there any transportation or buses or anything going to the Bronx? So he points the opposite way. So I walked down a couple blocks and there's nothing. It's just mayhem and stuff. I go back to that street, and down the street comes this Army vehicle with 4 or 5 guys in it. And I recognize that there's a second lieutenant in the front seat, brand new little butter bar, brand new lieutenant. And I was very politically correct. I go, where the fuck are you going? And the guy goes, we're going to City Hall. We're bringing radios. I go, I got a shitload of guys need to go back to the Bronx. We promise. Oh, this is one thing I do remember. He goes, we promise we'll come back and get you. I go, if you don't, I will kill you. So I stood there and waited, and sure as shit, they did come back. And we had my guys, and we were dropping guys off on the way back from the fire. We had a couple of guys from 43 and 59, 62 and 32. And the guy driving, I said, listen, I got to get a couple guys. One guy's got like 40 stitches in his arm and stuff. I said, he's from 43 and 59. He goes, 179 in Sedgwick. Okay. Yeah, he knows I used to work there. And I said, 62. He goes, White Plains and Gun Hill. I said, fine. Not only is he a city bus driver, but he's a buff. So he knows everything. He knows more about my job than I did. So he ended up driving us back to the firehouses and dropping us off, like 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. And my captain was there, Billy Chilson. And he goes, he says, I heard you guys did a great job cooking. I said, I got good news and bad news. He says, good news is you guys did a great job. Bad news, you're working tomorrow, because that's when the jobs went 24 on, 24 off, 24 on. So my tour, I got back Wednesday morning. He said, you're working tomorrow, meaning Wednesday. or that day. So they let me sleep. I don't. The best shower I've ever taken in my life, being in the military, was that night in there. And Eddie McCallum was working that night, and I was just, just a list of guys that you knew that were dead now. It was just, the list was just going up. And, how your mind plays tricks. I remember it was in the afternoon, and I hear Ralph Tizo, who was my captain in 41, now he's in Rescue 3. I hear him on the radio. My mind thinks, holy shit, they're fine. Not thinking he came from home like me. So I thought, like, wow, 3's good. And then in the afternoon, I saw Squad 41's rig, and it was not that bad. So in your mind, if the rig's okay, the guy's got to be good. And you start, I'm passing you, have you seen Dragon Eddie? Have you seen Danny? Have you seen this? Yeah, I saw both of them. How about so-and-so? No. And then a lot of my guys in my military unit are on the FDNY. I saw Jeff Cool. I saw Chris, how about John Gorman, who's a Port Authority cop in our reserve? Have you seen John? No. And then I think it was around midnight, Richie Ting from 41, he goes, Dave, they got Bobby. And I carry his name because he's the one that nicknamed me Boar's Head. That's a whole nother story I may tell you today. But, they got Bobby. And then, have you seen so-and-so? No, not yet. And then I always said, great to see you, brother. Never meant so much that night and in the following weeks because you just didn't know who. There was a couple guys that were on the missing list, and they were fine. And then you're just finding out that every day the computer or the fax machine was just shooting out more and more guys that were missing. And then they told me that Mike Lynch, that was a Proby in 32, was on that rotation, 40 engine in Manhattan. And 40 got wiped out. The whole house did. 35 truck, 40. And a guy that I know, he was on the rotation with us. I can't remember his name now, but he's alive today because he was jumping on 35 truck, and the Captain Gallen goes, I've got 6 riding positions, and I'm taking 6 guys, and he kicked them off, and it saved his life. So how do you know what's what?
Did you, at the time, right, nobody's thinking about the long term of this, and, you lost a lot of friends that day, but you're still losing friends today through 9/11 cancer and so on. And that's, the numbers have exceeded those lost that day now from your job, and the numbers continue to climb. And I know several people that I've known that have passed or have, something of 9/11,
Well, Thule from 41 truck, he became, he was my very first Uber driver. He just started taking over the Gator and from 41 truck, and for shits and giggles, he put a Proby patch on his helmet. He looks like he has 4,000 years on the job anyways, but so we're down there, I don't know when it was, and we had what they called the teams, from California showed up.
The USAR teams or what have you?
What's that?
The USAR teams?
USAR, whatever.
Right.
So,
yep.
And I can tell this guy from California is like on the legit, like if you use the word fuck, it was like kryptonite to him. It's like,
Right.
So, Thule pulls up to 10 and 10. That's when we had turned it into a tool room and a staging area. He comes in, and the guy looks at me and goes, that guy's a Proby? I go, whoa, good thing you saw that. Listen, he's a military guy. He's a whole mess up on this. He's actually like the oldest guy to ever get on the FDNY. He's an awesome guy. Whatever you do, just don't make eye contact with him. So for the entire month they're there, the guy's talking to Thule with his head turned. And now they're getting ready to leave. Now this went on forever. The whole time he's there, he will not look at Thule face to face. Because I told him this whole thing, and I just expanded on every time.
Sure.
Like I said, oh yeah, Thule's, they take guns away from him, he's even dangerous with a Halligan, the whole bit. So the last day they're getting ready to leave, I tell him and Thule together, I said, listen, this is what I said. I said, Thule was a military guy, got on late, he's got PTSD, he's got everything you can name, STD, everything else. Don't talk to him, or when you do, don't make eye contact. They both punched me and gave me cardio thumps, like, "You're an asshole." Like, well, that's the inside joke. That's fun.
Yeah, right. It works
Because
for you. Yeah.
we'd be down in the pit, it'd be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's like we just needed a break.
Yeah.
We're all just covered in crap, and I would just get on the radio and just start going, "Thule, Thule," and you'd wait, and all of a sudden he'd go, "Boar's Head." We always had a predetermined spot where he'd come down with a gator, pick us up, take us up to the church where we could sleep in the pew for an hour or whatever, and get a fresh water, and it was nice sleeping in the pews at the church. And then Thule would drop us off. Thule had succumbed to 9/11 cancer, but great dude. I mean, there's a lot of brotherhood and friendship down there. The iron workers were awesome.
Yeah.
The operating engineers, those guys with those giant grapplers could scratch your nose and not draw blood. Those guys were awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 beer cans from down there. One's covered in concrete. The other one is the brand new Budweiser with the pull top. That's you didn't need an opener. And the operator hits his horn, taps it, and he points over there, and I look, and there's the beer can. He brought this giant claw over. He picked it up, brought it back to me, and threw it underhand with the claw, and I caught it. He didn't dent the can. So I have that as one of my little Ground Zero souvenirs.
Wild. Well, the effects of 9/11, September 11th, remain today. Obviously, Tunnels to Towers. We're doing a fundraiser this coming weekend, and Dan and yourself, we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna talk about his Mayday that he went through, and I'm gonna have him on the podcast later this week, talk about his career. But I don't know, Dave. Incredible stories today, and just getting to know you and getting to hear a little bit about who you are and what makes you tick. What a fun, fantastic conversation.
You asked the guys that basically had stuck working with me in '62. If anything unusual happened, I was the one that was working.
Yeah.
Train crashes, multiple homicides, all kinds of stupid stuff. But when you talk about the brotherhood and the messing around, when I was covered in 89 and 50 up in Throgsneck, a nice section of the Bronx, I did have a sniper attack. I was shot at. 4 of the 5 rounds made my office. That's another long story. But the day I went to Jacoby, went to the hospital, I broke my teeth, messed up my shoulder. With my advanced military training, all I could do was dive for cover. I didn't have anything. I was going to shoot staples at them. But when I got back, where my gear was hanging, because it was all covered in glass and everything, but there was a jogging vest on a hanger right where my gear is supposed to be. And they had put a bullseye target on the front and back. I still think about it, I still laugh. I still have that to this day. It was one of my proud things I always hang on my wall, and I just retired from the Port Authority. Guys are asking in my office, and I tell them the story. I go, after a sniper attack, those guys gave that to me. They put a bullseye in the front and back, and
that's funny.
If they ain't breaking your balls, they don't like you.
Well, and I think, ultimately, that's really what this is all about. I mean, we were chatting about that before, and it's the whole we thing, and it's the brotherhood, it's the enjoyment of the job and the people you do it with, and it's a job that brings tremendous joy and laughter, but it's also can have its moments of terror and sadness, and but I ultimately I appreciate conversations like this more than because the storytelling like this and the experiences from colorful places. Not everybody has a career like yours, and a lot of guys come out of a city like New York City with unbelievable storytelling and the antics that went on, the fires, and so on. But that makes for a colorful career, and I think that's a big part of why you fell in love with it. And why it consumes you as a human being, that many years later you still can't get enough of the friendships and the laughter and the storytelling and so on. And that is such a big part of it. I don't know. I've
been lucky. The old adage was, you know, if you like or love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life.
Sure.
And so, thinking about this, I haven't thought of it, but since '74, I've been involved doing this.
Yeah.
And the only real burp or hiccup in the career was, you know, the 9/11.
Yeah.
But even down there, the bonding and the working together, and, you know, working side by side with everybody, cops, firemen, Port Authority guys, iron workers. But when it was all said and done, when you met up at the street and, you know, before we break up, and, all right, brothers, safe home, see you tomorrow. And when you said brothers like that, every letter in the word was capitalized.
That's when it hits.
And it's still hitting. I mean, like I said, we still have guys. And how many guys now? It's a shame I should know this number, but we have a tremendous amount of guys that are out there sick and fighting. Yeah. And there are other guys that just went off radar, got tired of it. So I think our number would probably even be a little higher than what's actually posted right now. You know. Yeah. You know, and then
it hits. You know, if it's not the physical, it's the emotional toll too. And, you know, so many went through so much. Everybody knows their story. You know, you said it's the Pearl Harbor of your generation, right? And, you know, everybody remembers where they were. And those that were directly affected by it can reminisce and talk about it. But many don't want to or choose to. And that's okay, too.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's your world.
Yeah, yeah. But, Dave, I just thank you for your time today, man. This has been an incredible conversation. You know, I appreciate this. This is the start of a great friendship, I hope. And, you know, I look forward to doing the fundraiser with you this weekend. It was important for me. You know, it's important to get to know the people that you're going to do projects with. And, you know, I met with you and Dan the other night, and I said, you know, I'd really love to get you guys separate because I've seen you guys together. I'll get nowhere together because all you're doing is ribbing and busting and a lot of laughter and smiles. A little bit of storytelling, but a lot of, you know, banter back and forth. And I didn't think I was going to be able to get to where I wanted to get to if I didn't separate you guys. So we're going to separate
You're in charge.
You, and then I'll bring you back together this weekend for the banter and the laughter and so on. But thanks for spending some time with me today, man, and sharing some of your stories.
My pleasure, my honor. You know, I hope it worked out because there's so many things that you got to be, I don't know. There's more stories, of course, but I just didn't know how deep. But, you know, if you're going to put Danny and me together, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm telling you that right now.
That's right. Well,
you know,
I will,
thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. You know, this is the fire service, the Brotherhood.
Yeah. Because
the most important piece of equipment in a firehouse is the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Because that's where you bond, you eat bread, you drill, you do everything. You find out about so-and-so's, you know, baby, or, you know, guys getting divorced or whatever, and you just solve the problem of the job in the world. And, you know, as we all know, there's two things firemen can't stand.
Yeah.
The way it is and change.
Yeah.
So get over it.
So get over it. I love it.
Yeah.
Dave Russell, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining me today.
My friend Jeremy, thank you for what you do, and
thank you.
Keep the fire service and the kitchen table alive. Thank you.
We're trying, pal. We're trying, one story at a time, but we're trying. So, yeah. Good. Stay right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to chat with you offline, but I'm just going to sign off the podcast, and I'll come right back to you, okay? So
okay.
Don't go anywhere. Cool. Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Saturday, June 22nd. It's actually going to be this Saturday. We're going to be, where are we going to be? We're going to be at the 19th Hole in Stamford, Connecticut, doing a fundraiser starting at 6:30 at night with Mike Dragonetti and Dragon Rescue Management, his crew. Stroll down Mayday Lane with Dave and Dan. Mayday, we just got here. It's a very powerful. It's going to be a lot of powerful conversation, circled around some laughs and good stories from two real good guys. And so I hope to see you there. And like I say at the end of every podcast, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it. Because when we talk about the job, we're making the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.